on this episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists.
I thought this game of making money, if you just solved it, like it solves all your other problems, and it turns out you still have problems and life is still hard. Men either explode or they implode. They either like take it all in and stuff it all down and just suffer in silence, or they blow up their life, they blow up their marriage, they blow up their practice, their professional, setting, and kind of destroy everything because they're suffering and unhappy and unsatisfied. And unfortunately, I've seen it over and over and over. Dentists, non-dentists, hygienists, people who are imploding on the inside, eventually there's repercussions and you're fine and you're fine and you're fine until you're not. And then all of a sudden it's pretty bad. And for me, the difference between motivation and discipline, motivation runs out, and when you don't feel good, you don't do it. Discipline is, I don't really care how I feel. Like, if I'm depressed, that's fine. I can work out depressed.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists podcast, episode number 471. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston, and thank you so much for being with us yet again. Today's episode is one of success and perseverance and difficulty and overcoming obstacles. Our guest is Dr. Richard Lowe, and he talks about this journey that he's taken over the last several years from both a physical standpoint, but also mentally and emotionally. He's open and honest. And I think there's a lot that we can all learn. Sometimes for me, it feels like maybe it was around the time of the pandemic and the forced shutdowns and the isolation. Maybe that's also just coincidental. I'm not actually really sure. But that's when I started keying in on this fact that there were quite a few people that I knew very closely, that became completely different than who they used to be. They started doing things that were completely uncharacteristic of themselves. And actually I think it's a lot of depression. I think that people are depressed and they're angry and they don't get the help that they need. And so what I'm hoping for is, first of all, that the people that I know that are struggling with this are listening to this episode, but also I think all of us have it to some degree. There's a touch of it somewhere. And if we follow the footsteps of what Dr. Lowe did or something similar to it, I think that we're going to be in a much healthier state. I really don't think that most people understand how far they go down the hole until they have some sort of a wake-up call. And usually it's kind of an unfortunate wake-up call. So hopefully we can reverse that before that wake-up call causes some permanent damage. Again, this is a redemption story. It's a happy, good ending. But Dr. Lowe does get into some serious personal challenges that he was facing, including depression and some addiction and things like that. So this episode might not be for everybody. That's your disclaimer. That's the heads up. But I'm very, very glad that he shared that with us. I also want to take a minute to thank everyone for the love and show of support from the episode that dropped last week about my not renewing the ADHA membership. I kind of actually expected some mixed responses, especially on social media, because it's easy for people to make mixed responses on social media. But the reality of it was that everyone that reached out shared the same exact feelings that I had. It had been weighing on my mind, actually. I wasn't sure if I was going to put this episode out. I had it originally planned for the end of 2024, but I still actually hadn't made my full decision what I was going to do. When I knew I didn't want to renew, then I was like, okay, well, I'll just put it out for like the first Friday of 2025, because at that point, everyone who was going to redo their membership would have done so. My opinion wouldn't have swayed them whatsoever. And then I just kept thinking about it a little bit. I'm like, okay, let me just push it back. I'm just not sure. I want to make sure that my response was balanced and measured. And so when you all reached out, that meant an incredible amount to me. So very much thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. If you happen to miss that episode, you're like, Andrew, what are you talking about? It really is, in my opinion, a must listen. So go find that episode in your podcast app and give it a download. It's just from a couple of episodes ago, so you should be able to find it. Okay, that's all for this one. Enjoy the episode with Dr. Richard Lowe.
A tale of two hygienists.
All right, listeners, welcome into this episode. I'm joined by Dr. Richard Lowe today. Doctor, thank you for joining us.
Just Richard. I'm not even seeing patients these days. My 2-year-old, we were watching Baby Shark yesterday, and it's like the baby shark, which I'm a bad parent because I'm letting her watch Baby Shark. But
Okay.
it's the dentist one, and she's like watching Baby Shark dentist, and I'm like, Victoria, I'm a dentist, and she's like, you're not a dentist. She's like, Dad, you're not dentist, Baby Shark dentist. And I'm like, you don't have any evidence contrary to this, because I haven't been clinical for the last 18 months. So anyways, sorry.
Well, I will do my best. We know each other kind of personally from podcasting and other stuff, so I think I'll try and do a Richard every now and again.
Oh, whatever.
Don't it might slip out on the occasion.
No.
Listeners love us arguing right from the get-go. So listeners, you might know him from shared practices. In my opinion, Richard, you're one of those people. I consider you one of the top mentors in dentistry. And that's not to inflate your ego, because I know you're a very humble person, but I think it's the way that you do it makes you the top. So you do a lot of peer-to-peer mentoring as opposed to like that top-down mentality. I love that approach, but that's not necessarily what I want to talk about today. So the reason why
Thank you for saying that, by the way.
Of course. The reason why I want you to be on, okay, so just everyone lives in their own little world. We all, the algorithms push things to our social media feeds whenever it feels like it seems like. And for me, it was not uncommon for you to occasionally appear, disappear, appear, as you have different projects going on, right? You get buried in your projects, you're building a business, you're doing all these things, you do that, and then you come back. So it had seemed like, man, where's Richard at? Like, I haven't seen this guy in a little bit. And all of a sudden, there's a video of you working. I don't know if it's a tonal or whatever that is. That you're working on, like at 4 a.m. or something. Yeah. And like, yep, baby was crying and, still trying to work out. And I'm like, oh, dude's got some dedication. Like maybe he just insomnia, can't sleep. I don't know what's going on. But it also, the reason why I like those videos is because you did not seem to be enjoying yourself. You seem to hate that. As opposed to like those, like, the influencers, like, all right, we got to get up at 4 a.m. You can do this. Like, that's not what you're like. No. This sucks.
Well, and I was even posting on those stories, like I kept getting distracted. I would wake up at 4 a.m. to go work out, and then I'd end up on Facebook, like while I was in the bathroom for 40 minutes. Then I'd be super pissed at myself. I'm like, why the heck did I wake up this early? If I'm going to waste time on my phone when my kids are asleep, I'm an idiot. So I was holding myself accountable because you're right. I didn't want to do the workout half the time.
I love that. And again, this is one of the things I like about you is your honesty and your transparency. You've always been that kind of person. You've always, put it out there, whether it's going to embarrass yourself or not. And that's kind of what I want to lean into. Like, so I watched all of this and I saw then there was a post. I think you declared yourself a swearing person or something. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what it was.
There was a post that said secret swears of Mormon dads, because there's some like controversial show on that I haven't even watched. I don't know what's on it, but yeah, my whole life, I've never sworn, like up till 2 years ago. And now all of a sudden it's like, I've made some changes. There's a lot of things that have changed. So, and one of those is being a midlife crisis where like a lot of little things I used to hang on to just don't feel as important, and like saving my marriage and like saving the things that really matter to me and not burning my life down. In comparison, I'm like, you know what? I'm okay with swears now. And that's new. And yeah, so random. Yeah.
No, I mean, and that's actually, then you did your 2024 Wrapped and you talk about this midlife crisis. So that's what I want to start this conversation.
Okay.
But then I also want to transition into some of those kind of harder conversations that we have, if we have time for them.
Yeah.
About relationships with our wives, relationships with our children. The midlife crisis thing, though, is something that I've actually recently been feeling quite a bit. And so I feel like now is the great time where I'm like, I want to talk about this kind of stuff, because I similarly feel like I had a, kind of an issue, but I would want to talk more about your experiences. Like, what were you feeling? Like, did you feel like this midlife crisis was going on? What were some of like the symptoms and the signs? Were there things that you could have done better that could have mitigated some of this? Or was it just like, this is inevitable for everybody? Like, let's just dive into this.
Yeah. No, this is great. So you don't want this to be a live therapy session for you. So instead I'll vomit my stuff here. No, it's definitely funny because I think with, getting into hygiene school, getting into dental school, there can be this like forward face, getting your first house, like having kids. There can be this sense of like, when I get to this point, then I will be happy. And I think dentists have that baked in a little extra because You got to get through undergrad, and then you got to get through dental school, and then you got to get into the practice, and then the practice has to not kill you, and you have to like get to the point where it's stable and happy. And then I'm going to be happy, right? Like that, and then there's going to be some money somewhere, hopefully. And I'm a serial chronic entrepreneur, kind of like you. Like I'm fidgety in dental school. I got my real estate license, and then I worked at Dental Town, and then in the Army, I started Shared Practices, the podcast. And so there's always been this like excited side hustle energy to my life. There's always been this very forward facing energy. And I got out of the Army. I was in the Army for 6 years, and I, podcasted through my 6 year or 5 years of the Army, which like is kind of frowned upon. Like they don't really like it when you're doing stuff like that, but we did it anyways. Just look like a good soldier when you're active duty, and then on off scenes you can kind of get away with stuff. Don't do that, dentists. You should always be a good soldier. I guess I'm rambling now, but I got to the point where I was really excited to get out of the Army. I was really excited to own a dental practice. I was really excited to earn more money. Like I thought that was gonna like make me happy. And when you're, it always feels like if I had more money, it would solve all my problems. But I'm a cheap date. Like I live in the Midwest, and we have a $400,000 house. I don't like fancy cars. Like I'm not a dentist with like expensive appetites. And so there came a couple moments. Number one was I was just chronically overcommitted for like 10 years, I just did too much. I put too much on my plate. And I went from being like very motivated to listen to podcasts and read self-development books and, work on myself and find like sustainable structures and set goals. And over the last 3-4 years, I didn't have it in me. Like I didn't trust myself. I felt like I was going backwards. I was gaining weight. My fitness was going the other direction. I would set goals. They would last for 2 weeks. And there was some definite moments of like, crap, I can kind of afford anything in Walmart, and none of it would actually make me happy. And like that actually feels kind of disappointing. It's like I thought this game of making money, if you just solved it, like it solves all your other problems. And it turns out you still have problems, and life is still hard, even when you make a little bit more money. So that was one piece of it. I also was like, if you looked at my Google search history, I was Googling like, what's it called when like nothing makes you happy or nothing sounds appealing, which the answer is anhedonia. And it's a symptom of depression, and which should have been a red flag for me that like, maybe I'm depressed. And instead I was like, that's funny. I'm not depressed, but I just don't feel like doing anything, and nothing sounds interesting or appealing. And for me, depression shows up different in men and women. A lot of times men sedate. Men, instead of verbalizing and feeling their depression, they're like, heck no, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to talk about that. So what do? It's video games. Like for me, that video games, social media, and then unfortunately pornography. Those are 3 things that I would self-sedate with, and they would make me forget about the depression that I felt temporarily. And they were taking away from the things that I valued, taking away from my relationship with my wife, from my time with my kids, from my sleep, from my health. Like I'm a video game binger. Like during COVID, when I was running 3 practices, which I bought while I was in the Army, incredibly stupid idea. I had great partners, but like running 3 practices through COVID, we were about to like go through a partnership divorce. And I like found this new game that I loved. It was like, oh, this is it. This is my game. And I would play that game and I would see sunlight. I'd see like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. And then I like have work the next day. Like, so when I say like I'm kind of an addict and I'm kind of prone to unhealthy imbalance, I don't have a satiety button when it comes to gaming. Like 5 hours can pass and I'm like, yeah, let's keep going, man. Like we're just getting started. So I was giving up hope of overcoming my health challenges, of overcoming the stress levels, and then somewhere, and stop me, I'm rambling. Like at this point, is there anything you want to hit on from all of that?
Keep going. No, keep going.
At some point after I walked away from these 3 practices, actually, I bought a denture and implant practice, which is offensive to everyone listening to this podcast because it's hygiene-less. all we do is pull all the teeth. They don't come to us if they've got, teeth they want to save. They're, terminal dentition. They've failed to come to the hygienist for a long, long time. And now we got to deal with it. They did not get the scaling and root planing that their smoking caused that they needed, deep treatment for. So I bought this practice, and in the back half of the first year, I kind of like expanded, brought on a doctor too early. I was like messing up the marketing. I was like trying to figure things out new rather than follow formulas that worked for other people. And I lost $200,000 in the back half of my first year of practice ownership. This is after podcasting about practice ownership, GP practice ownership with hygiene and all that for years. Felt incredibly embarrassing. I had to fire a doctor. I had to close an office. That was super painful. And I was in the depth of that. And then George, my partner and co-host, comes to me. He's like, Richard, I think we're going to start a DSO. And I was like, okay, I just walked away from a DSO last year. And I was like, I don't think I like it. Managing doctors is something that I realized I just don't have the stomach for. You can have like a ton of incredible doctors, and then you have like that one toxic individual who makes everyone around them miserable. And like, that's the person that, I don't want to be their boss. So long story short, we started a DSO, denture and implant DSO, kind of like halfway between affordable and clear choice. So full arch implants, overdentures, and dentures. And I somehow became the CEO of it, just through a series of unfortunate events for everyone else involved. And, I was trying to do my absolute best. I knew I wasn't super well suited for the role, but my partners had my back. They were really shouldering a lot of the executive responsibilities that maybe typically would have fallen to a CEO. So there were 6 of us, and we split 6 partners. We split the responsibilities. We kind of filled out the C-suite. And we merged our practices together, took out some loans. We started doing startups, and we did 10 startups in our first year, which is a lot to do in 1 year. It's a lot. And a lot of them were very, very successful, amazing doctors, amazing locations, really kicked things off well. And we're like, we've got something magic here. Like, we can do this. So the next year we did 20 startups, which
What is okay?
is
This
just
is your addict coming out again.
Well, no, and I was the wet blanket. I literally from day one of the partnership of the 6 of us, I'm the wet blanket. I'm the skeptic among us, and I'm gonna say stuff when I'm like, I don't know about this, and they're like, no, we can do this, and they're right, and also I'm right. It's like, we can do this, and I never thought it was possible, and you learn some hard lessons of like, okay, this was a market that now we know better. We had to close an office in Dallas or in Houston or Chicago because it's just such an expensive, competitive market for full arch implants. If we'd known that ahead of time, we wouldn't open offices there. But that's the only way you can learn, is by doing stuff. And on that note, I also learned I am not suited to be a CEO of a dental group. And last fall, I guess I can't say last fall of 2023, we're now at the beginning of 2025, I stepped down as CEO. And then I stepped into and handed over to Alex Sharp, who he had the discipline, he had the leadership, he had a lot of the things that I was lacking with my midlife crisis and kind of downward descent. And so we handed over to him. That was amazing. I stepped into chief clinical officer, and I thought that would be like, oh yeah, let's like really help the best doctors. And it really came down to, I had to like fire doctors and close offices, or I had the doctors who were struggling the most and least receptive to feedback. And that's the hard part, is like the doctors who are succeeding and they want feedback are so fun to work with. But when you get a doctor who is struggling, is making their team miserable, and they don't want to listen, and they think it's everyone else's fault, like those were the doctors that ended up on my plate. And I couldn't take it. I'm too much of a people pleaser. I'm too much of a perfectionist. And I had a full-blown like mental health midlife crisis, and I stepped back completely. March of last year, 2024, I took 2 months of unpaid medical leave to figure out what was going on in my head as I was breaking, to save my marriage because I kind of almost flushed it down the toilet, to figure out my health. And there's something that pulled me out of all this, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. But that's kind of the full story leading into the midlife crisis of like, that was rock bottom for me. Was I just kind of almost, men either explode or they implode. They either like take it all in and stuff it all down and just suffer in silence, or they blow up their life, they blow up their marriage, they blow up their practice, their professional, setting, and kind of destroy everything because they're suffering and unhappy and unsatisfied. And unfortunately, I've seen it over and over and over. Dentists, non-dentists, hygienists, people who are imploding on the inside. Eventually there's repercussions, and you're fine and you're fine and you're fine until you're not. And then all of a sudden it's pretty bad. So there's my
Yeah, well,
vomit right there.
the thing is, like, I have seen this probably the last 4 or 5 years, dozens of times every year. And it's with close people. It's with people I are, one person removed from, people adjacent. And I agree with you. I think that, men are generally not equipped with great communication skills. I think that, for whatever does, however you grew up or whatever, I think there's different things there. But I find that the tendency to destroy, so whether that's in the internalizing that you're saying and destroying yourself, or, exploding and destroying everybody else, is a power that's hard to define, and it's hard to explain to a partner and a spouse. With Allison, my wife and stuff, I've had these conversations, and I think I did a kind of a similar thing with you, is where I was trying to chase success, or I was trying to chase money, or I was trying to chase the things that was instilled in me, that these were like the bench points of life. Like, this is how you make it in life, right? And so when you get there, you got there super young. And I think that's kind of part of the problem too, is if you would have made maybe some of these benchmarks of success, we'll say at 65, you might feel quite a bit different. But you have your whole entire life ahead of you. You're so young. Like, there's no way you could have anticipated being this successful this young. And I think that people don't know how to handle that. I think that's really hard, because you are like, what's next? There's a void now in my life. And so pivoting now from, kind of this downfall, you took the time off. What were the things that you had to do to get your life back on track? Like, was it a therapy thing, or was this
Yeah, this is great. So the thing that pulled me out of this was an insane men's group that I joined. I joined a men's group called, it was actually at a DEO event. Emmett Scott, who is one of the MCs, I can't remember where he is in the leadership, but he's got his own podcast. He got on stage and he posted this before and after of him. And I want to say he's in his mid to late 40s. And I apologize to Emmett if you're like 37 and you've been through a lot. But he posts this before and after, and he went from like 260, 280 to like 180, and went from dad bod to shredded, like 6-pack abs in the mirror. And I have been, Christine married a soft nerd. Like, that has been me my entire life. I've never been strong. I failed the PT test in the Army, which is really embarrassing as an officer, to not be able to hit the 52 push-ups I had to hit in front of like other soldiers and officers. And then I was put in remedial PT while I was in residency. So like, I'm just not like, I'm not a strong guy. Like, testosterone levels were kind of low and all that kind of stuff. Or I was not. And so when I saw that, I was suffering. I was like miserable, but no one knew I was miserable at that point. And that's when I was still CEO and everything kind of looked good from the outside, but I was dying. And it was hard for my wife to hear that too. I would tell her like, I feel like I don't know how to be happy anymore. And she'd really take that hard, because she's like, we've sacrificed everything. Are you not happy with me? Are you not happy with our life, with our marriage? And I was just like, I don't know. Like, for over a year, I was saying this. And there was some undiagnosed stuff, but I saw Emmett's results. And then Kyle Carnahan, the founder of Superhuman Fathers, got on stage and was like, yeah, we'll get you shredded. We'll make you a better husband, a better father, and more connected to God. And I was just like, shut up and take my money. Like, I literally swiped my card, and then I was like, so what is this program? Like, I did not ask a single question. I was just, I knew I needed this. I knew I needed help. And even like my prayers had gone, like, prayer and faith are really important to me. It's something I've like professionally had to scrub out of like podcasting and when you're in an office and all that. But like, even my kind of faith and my relationship to God had really shut down. But in the depth of like this person that was not me, like, my prayers were like 1-word prayers. It was like, help. Like, I don't know what to do. And this was like a lifeline. This is what I needed. And I kind of failed at it at first. It took me about 7, 8, 9 months. They give you your workouts, they give you your nutrition. They're like, you hit your workout every day, 6 days a week. You hit your macros within 10%. You journal, you study scriptures 15 minutes. And then, so I now have a program like this in dentistry that I've just closed the doors to for now. And I've added, and you serve someone in your family. You serve a spouse, a child, someone in the dental office you connect with or appreciate someone. So there's this 4-point game that you play every day and you report back to the group. And I was like yo-yo guy for the first 7-8 months of the program. I'd kind of do it and then fall off and I'd be embarrassed that I failed, and then I'd disappear off the face of the earth. And then I'd like, okay, I should do this again, start going to the gym. I remember sitting outside of Vasa Fitness at 4:30 a.m. on Thanksgiving Day, just over a year ago, journaling in my car before I went to the gym and just crying because I was like, I was starting to respect myself again. Like I was starting to feel some degree of control and like hope. And so this men's group like pulled me out of the pit. It helped me like deal with the shame and the failure. It helped me as like my marriage started to blow up and to like save my marriage and really be there for Christine. It's funny. I said in that 2024 rap, saved my marriage. And Jason Lipscomb from Dental Hacks, former Dental Hacks, was like, I think it kind of takes two. And I was like, yeah, but if you're a big asshole and you're blowing your marriage up, you need to work on yourself, because the other person was actually doing their part the whole time. And yes, 100%. And that was in the comments, but I got called out for saying it that way. And I owned up to it. I was like, you're right. It takes two to tango. But and Christine also, she's like, no, you're right. Like you needed to change and you did change. Otherwise you would not have saved our marriage.
Can we lean into that just a little bit? Can we go on that thread? Because I think a lot of our listeners it's predominantly women. And I think that if we can give them any insight to what Christine might have been feeling, even leading up into this time. So she met this, what'd you call yourself? A doughy nerd or whatever, a soft nerd. So, and then she sees this like self-destructive behavior happening. Were you guys having conversations about it? Or was this kind of like okay, just let him, give him his space. He'll figure it out. Like, what was she going through?
We kind of got to the roommate stage where we had a new baby. We were sleeping in separate rooms. She had severe sleep apnea. I, like her gasping with her sleep apnea would stress me out so bad. And so I started sleeping in a separate room. She would ask me, like, how was your day? And I'm like, well, dental assistant's boyfriend had a death threat against our office and the doctor. And then this doctor was racist and awful to his assistants, and we had to write her up, and we're going to have to close this. Like, I was at the point where I was like, I can't relive my day. So many bad things have happened today, and I can't process it. I don't want to. So I withdrew into myself and into unhealthy behaviors. And she didn't know the full extent of it. But we were just kind of living parallel lives. I slept in the room with the baby so that she could sleep, because I did better with less sleep. And she had postpartum with our previous kids. So I was like trying to shoulder the brunt of our newborn. But we just kind of started to like gradually grow apart, and she didn't know how to connect or help me in that sense. And it took me waking up, unfortunately, and it took me hitting rock bottom. But it also took, like, I remember in Superhuman Fathers, Dr. Jennifer Finlayson Fife, she's one of my favorite couples therapists, people. She's got a podcast, and she was interviewing with the Superhuman Fathers guys. And she said, when men say they have a lot of needs, then that puts the woman in a maternal role. And now it's like kids have needs and you have needs. And like one of the big things that coming around to was like, Christine, like, I don't want to be a needy husband in any department, whether it's intimacy, anywhere else. Like, I don't have needs. I'm strong. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to be with the kids. And I want to connect with you on whatever level you're available to connect with on a given night. So if you want to talk, if you want to watch a show, if you want to clean the house together, if you want to go for a walk, if you just need space, great. Like, I have no expectations and no needs to be met. And that was a big game changer for us, was me owning that. And that's part of the philosophy of Superhuman Fathers, which is fathers do the most and they need the least. Like, life is no longer about you once you're a dad. And it's really easy to forget that. I think women just tend to like pour into others more easily. And men tend to get more self-centered. We think we're like a character in a movie and that everything's about us. And we suffer differently. You know, it's like we're in this world of like gender differences and all this. But it's like, I think men suffer differently from women and we cope differently, and understanding that really helps. But fortunately, like we both went on our journey. She got on the GLP-1s, tirzepatide. She lost 70 pounds on that. She dropped her sleep apnea, like dropped her high blood pressure medication. I started doing this. I dropped 60 pounds of fat, put on 10 pounds of muscle. And we both had this transformation as we opted back into our marriage over the last year. You know, we did a couples retreat. We've been working on ourselves. I've been helping her in ways that I can. I've said I won't travel for a full year because I was traveling like multiple times a month before. And it's been incredible. It's been healing. And now I'm helping other dentists with the same stuff, with a lot of burnout, and helping them get a six pack is like our, like, hey, it's the bait and switch. I'm going to help you get a six pack. But then once they sign up for that, it's like, actually, I'm going to make you a better husband, father. I'm going to relight your faith and your purpose and actually get you to focus on the stuff that matters. And yes, we'll get there on the physical side, but that's the vehicle for the transformation everywhere else. But now my poor wife has to explain to people like, yeah, my husband's a dentist, but he doesn't have a practice. He's got a podcast and he's kind of like a personal trainer to other dentists. And it's just a long story and it makes me tired to tell it. So that's where we're currently at.
Let's talk about your relationship with your children when all this was happening, like the lead up and then during the breakdown, and then kind of like where you're at now as far as like being a father and being present and being, because it kind of sounds like you've always been a decent father though throughout all of this. Like that still was your pride.
Yeah, it was. I think our marriage suffered more than the marriage suffered more than my parenting. But when I had peak stress, especially in this all on four office, this all on four model, I would come home from work and I just like, I couldn't function. And so I would go appear into some room on my phone. Like that was, Christine told me, she's like, you being a CEO was not sexy. My vision of you as a CEO was you stressed out on your phone in the corner. Like I'm like hunched over my phone in the corner. That's Richard as CEO. That was her vision of it. Not some like boardroom, like suits and all this stuff. It's like my
She
husband
married
is
one sexy guy. That's all I can say.
a soft nerd
Funny.
hunched over in the corner on his phone, stressed out. So, but I always made sure I was the one putting them to bed. I was the one reading scriptures with them and helping them, take care of stuff there. But I think my capacity to really be myself and be proud of how I was showing up for them was so severely limited. And I was very selfish with, other than bedtime, with my time and my energy. And that's another part of this program is that I have dentists now. Like I wake up at 4:15 to get my workouts in, to get my scripture study, my journaling and service in before everyone else wakes up so that I can get the kids ready for school. And then in the evening, my phone, everything kind of shuts down at 9 p.m. because I need to go to bed. And otherwise I'll be up till midnight if it doesn't. But like it's forcing me to I have to like kill all of my selfish hobbies. It's like video games are gone, social media is gone. I've overcome habits and bad addictions that I've had in the past. And you can only do so many things, and realizing that like, okay, I'm going to have to drop some of my selfish stuff. And now I'm trying to find, can I work out with my 11-year-old? Like she kind of likes it. And we do stuff together in the basement, in the home gym. Can I get my 9-year-old to help with the baby and the three of us play together? And then I'm trying to find hobbies that we can do together. So what does my 11-year-old love? I've been meaning to go rock climbing with them because they liked rock climbing camp. I still haven't done it with them. And I never had the upper body strength to do rock climbing in the past. And now I'm like, I think I might be able to. So yeah, so I think, so with our kids, we really have from the age of 4 to 14 when they'll care about us and listen to us. And once they hit 14, like we're dead to them. Maybe some people are lucky and they get like lovely 17-year-old children who care about them and are still, yeah, okay, whatever. Andrew over here is rubbing it in. But really the window where we can kind of influence and teach them and they're like accepting that willingly is pretty small. And if you fall asleep in that window, 4 to 14, you can miss that gap. And all of a sudden they're teenagers and you don't recognize them and they don't want to spend time with you. And I'm trying to be cognizant of that. My 11-year-old, like I'm waking up and I'm like, crap, I kind of wasted some of these precious years grinding too hard, pushing too hard. The other thing is the movie About Time. If anyone wants to be a better parent, just watch that movie once a month for a year. About Time is so good. It's so freaking good. One of my all-time favorite movies. Just that movie alone will make you a better parent. So yeah, that's what I have to say on that.
The pulling yourself out, the kind of coming out of what you went through, I think what most people go through, it's daunting. It seems like it's a hard ask. It's a hard ask to have people do this. And you said yourself that you failed, multiple times for months and months and months till you finally, latched on. And the reason is, we always have excuses. We always have we don't have enough time. We don't have enough energy or desire or whatever. Can you talk about like mental toughness, overcoming excuses, and figuring out how to prioritize the important things in life?
Yeah. I was just thinking about this morning. So right now I have Zoom calls with my group of dentists 7 days a week. So we have morning check-ins and they hold themselves accountable for what they ate yesterday, what they exercised and all that. And they can do it in the app if they can't make it. But we talk about these things about discipline. And for me, the difference between motivation and discipline, motivation runs out. And when you don't feel good, you don't do it. Discipline is, I don't really care how I feel. Like, if I'm depressed, that's fine. I can work out depressed. If I don't feel good, I mean, sure, if you're sick or there's something major going on, be smart. But if I hate waking up at 4 a.m., but I want to change my life, then I do it. But I can't do it alone. I can't do it without other people. And meaning is one of the most powerful motivators. I mean, do you know who didn't have trouble with his diet? Gandhi. Gandhi almost starved himself to death because what he was doing meant so much to him. And so I think a lot of people, their reasons for losing weight or changing or transforming or having discipline are very shallow. It's like literally skin deep. I just want to look good naked. I want to look good at the pool. And that runs out so quick. And what this men's group did was it created this community where men were very open and honest and vulnerable. They were overcoming addictions and divorces and affairs and broken families and midlife crises. And they were sharing for the first time in a setting with other men who were also broken and trying to improve themselves. But they realized if I show up for me and if I am vulnerable, that helps other men in the group. And so all of a sudden, me waking up at 4:15 a.m. is not about me getting a six-pack. It's about serving these other men who I really care about because I know what's going on in their life. I know what they're facing. I know what they're struggling with. I want to show up for them. So it's been this crazy, I'm trying to figure out how to replicate this for more people of like, can you create this level of community and transformation at the same time and translate that into the stuff that really matters the most? So it's like you start with what people want, which is they want the weight loss, they want the transformation. You give them meaning and connection and accountability. And then you use all of that to fuel personal discovery, self-confrontation, improving your marriage, improving your relationship to God. And that's the format. And that's why I'm non-clinical right now still is I was about to buy a dental practice. I was like, I'm going to try to start a men's group doing this. If it doesn't work, I'll go buy a dental practice. But it's working. I've got 30 insane dentists who are weighing every gram of food they eat. They're cutting the heads off of their Sour Patch Kids so they can like hit their measurements exactly. It's like a game that they're playing. And it's incredibly fun. They're changing, I think we're down 200 pounds between the 22 guys who started at the beginning of November. So it's been crazy. My life is insane. And I feel like we were all over the place with this interview, Andrew. I'm sorry.
Well, no, but the thing is, I think sometimes most time we talk about clinical stuff, and I think a lot of times that we forget about the human connection. We're all human beings. And part of it is I wanted to give our female listeners like an opportunity to listen, like, hey, men are going through some stuff too. I mean, we always really try and cater the podcast to, the listener, but in this particular case, I think that there's a lot of takeaways that they can find with their male partners that will help them have better communication, better understanding, better, maybe for me, I am a guy that likes to be a little bit pushed with my spouse. Like if you see me going through some stuff, push or don't push, or let me stew or don't let me stew. All of this is about communication. And I think that for the most part, it goes untalked about and it goes undiscussed, and women are made to feel out in the cold. And then all the bad stuff happens. But then on the flip side, we have a lot of male hygienists as well listening to the show, and I just had a conversation just a month ago with a male hygienist who he's not stuck in his career, but he's definitely peaked, and he peaked too early, and he's incredibly brilliant, incredibly smart. And I'm just like, you know what? I don't know how to help you pass this one little part, but you'll figure it out eventually. But I feel like you're going to go through exactly what I just went through, and I am sad for you that might happen to you. And I don't know how to, get him past it. But I think like these kind of conversations, knowing that other people are out there and there are groups out there that they can seek out, I think will help them. So no, this wasn't all over the place. This is exactly what I was looking for. I appreciate your time. Normally we have like a call to action. I mean, do you have anything you want our listeners to go follow you on?
No, for sure. This year, as weird as it sounds, I'm going pro on Instagram. Like legitimately have hired a video editor in South Africa. I just sent him my first 10 videos. He's editing and putting them up. And I've got a podcast, a secret podcast on there called Broken to Unrecognizable: How to Drop 50 Pounds and Become a Better Husband, Father, and Dentist. You don't have to be a dentist or a husband or a father like this. The principles are applicable. And my wife and I were like, we should figure out how to help people break free from GLPs, because you start doing these diet shots and you lose all this weight. And then all of a sudden you feel trapped by those shots, and they're expensive, and you're terrified you're going to gain it all back. So like my Instagram account is going to be a little bit of a, I don't know if we're allowed to cuss on your show, but I cuss now, but
Yeah,
a little bit of a shitstorm of like, okay, what is Richard going to say next? So if anyone wants to just see a dentist go down in flames, come follow me on Instagram at nextlevelfathers.dmd or dr.richard.low. Either one of those. Come follow me, and you can get the secret podcast there if you want to. But it should be good. Or if you're like, you've got stuff for me, you're like, okay, you need to talk about this. This is what the men in my life need to hear. And you say it, and you send me those DMs, and I'll be like, okay, yeah, let's call them out. Let's get them doing the dishes. Let's get them doing laundry more. Let's get them actually feeling emotions and talking about those emotions. Men we're kind of dumb. We need a lot of help.
Seriously. Richard, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.